And now I realize, just as I'm going into turn 4, the turn 3 leaders that I put out that probably didn't affect much, but they definitely affected some stuff. Well, some of them are duplicates between factions, and now I have to try to hunt them down. And these are almost unreadable. This is one of the real problems with this design. And I'm going to have to match things up and see who gets what and all that kind of crap. On the other hand, down there is a cat. Now, you might say, "Ooh, wow, a cat," you know. But honestly, cats are a rarer thing for me to see. Although not so much. That one's not the one, but I've got a neighbor who moved in with a cat just recently. He takes it out for a walk under, but he just around the area, like just around his yard, basically. But you know, to see one alone, that's fairly rare. Not as rare as a possum, but rarer than my deer or turkeys. Certainly, turkeys I can see whenever I want. But anyhow, now if I leave my house, I can see lots of cats. But there aren't a lot in this neighborhood that are wandering around. Okay, so anyhow, I have to go back and try to look at those turn 3 guys and see which ones match up and are dual use. Now I can find that by looking here. But it's not trivial. I actually don't think there are any, but I have to make sure. Green is, now he's in the Royalist deck, which means I had him in the deck for the Royalists, but he's listed as a Huguenot, and I don't think I did a conversion last turn. In fact, I know I didn't. So I'm going to move him over here to the Huguenot deck. Yeah, and keep looking. This is not pleasant. Okay, so I think that's all the C's. I have a D here. This looks likely. These are not the same person. Okay. But you can see what a pain in the ass this is. Trying to think if there's anything. I mean, clearly not having the name in a tiny little script here, maybe having the name boldly written on the other side where there's less information, as well as that script, something to help you identify the duplication. Also some sort of symbology to show you that this is someone who's dual allegiance, because otherwise it's just so easy to just pull everyone and throw them over here. All right, now I got to look at the chits for turn 4 and see how they align. Now on the bright side, oh boy, I think I flipped turn 4 people over. On the bright side, I have the cards that were added for here, but that doesn't necessarily, again, I know that there are cards that don't have chips. I'm not sure that there are chips that don't have cards. That is a possibility. So I remembered mentioning it when I went to sleep last night, and I didn't want to, well, or late this morning. It was around 3 or 4, which isn't bad for me. But then I ended up, first of all, I had taken a nap for a couple hours already. So it's kind of understandable with my sleeping schedule. But then also, I ended up sleeping for like more than 12 hours, which there's no good reason for. I wasn't on that much of a lack of a sleep, especially after the nap, that makes any sense. All right, so what did I remember? Well, I remembered that the war winner was supposed to get 2 royalist cities, the Huguenots here St. Bartholomew's. I don't think I gave them to them. So now I'm going to search for those two and put them down. And again, it's a totally new system, right? Completely different from anything else that I've seen in a lot of ways. I should be able to integrate these kind of things, but there's no cheat sheet that really tells you all this stuff, and there's so many things you have to keep in memory, mechanical little actions you have to keep in memory that aren't really well documented on like a simple cheat sheet. It is somewhat a difficult task to incorporate all these different steps. I should write one out, but there isn't a simple one to copy from the rules, for example. It would have to be, I would have to write out a step of things. One that would indicate, hey, the winner gets their bonuses, including the land bonuses. Would it be enough still? I don't know. But yeah, I'm allowed to pick any 2 cities, basically, from the royalists and seize them. And which 2 those should be, that's a hard call. But that's starting to put these towards their victory conditions. Once they pass the royalists, the league is obviously having issues. I have to make this decision too. Look, in terms of difficulty, I think I'd rather take 2 major cities than taking a minor city. But then there's the thought of, well, would it be more valuable to lock an area, prevent the royalists from putting troops there? I don't think so. And here's the why of that. It's fairly easy to move. If I had something back here that was royalist, I might want to prevent them from being able to go anywhere back there, because that's sort of a safe world for the Huguenot. But Huguenot, still pronounce that H too much. But short of that, you know, say sealing something like Languedoc is kind of unimportant. Spaniards can come in through here, royalists can come through. None of it's really a big deal. So I think I'm going to aim for 2 big cities. There are interesting things like, hey, do I want the river crossing here? That prevents an easier attack across. Probably not. So I think I'll just grab a couple of bigger cities from the royalists. The turn's event chit. Now, if I try to read this as much as I can, it looks like Polius Souswan. You know, I mean, it's just unreadable, this script that they chose. I'm guessing this is either Portuguese succession or peasant revolt. And I'm going to go with Portuguese succession. That looks closer. Remove Strozzi or a royalist general character. Okay. From the game. The character card in the counter reporting Strozzi or the general is removed from the game. Alright, easy enough. I'll find them. Take a look at the draws that I get. I reshuffled all the decks. I did 1 die roll. Seems safe enough, because honestly, just about every turn I have to reshuffle the deck anyway. So the only real question is, hey, what's the top card? So, Grand Tour of France. This is a useless card right now. Came available in turn 2, but because the St. Bartholomew's Day, it just goes into my hand. Now that shows sort of, hey, I've got a certain amount of force available that's unknown to other players. Vengeance. If assassination has been played against a league leader, remove a Huguenot leader. Okay, well, that's pretty limited, and I remember. Okay, so here's the problem. An assassination was played, wasn't it? Here we go. Was it played against a league leader? Well, that just says an enemy leader. I could have pulled anything out with that. I don't remember who was removed. Well, that's fucking useful, you know. Maybe. Person looking through the entire deck that I think was worth assassinating was Francis de Lorraine. I don't think he was assassinated. I seem to remember him dying kind of by a shock. How am I supposed to remember this shit? You know, this is a bad card design. I have to think about what is going to happen there. I really don't know. Hampton Court Treaty, maximum English subsidies for this turn, put the Le Havre counter on the map. Well, that is definitely a worthwhile thing to do at the end of the court phase. Definitely. Here's the question. Can I play this in addition to an English roll? Well, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't feel like that's the intention. It says without having to send it as a diplomatic mission, but it also says increase troops and money to the maximum. The word increase to the maximum indicates to me that if I got supplies, it would go up to the maximum. Not that I'd be able to add this in addition to a roll. So I think the answer is you play this, you don't make a roll on the English. It also lets the English show up because of the Le Havre counter right in Normandy. The creation of the Le Havre counter is weird. It counts as a small Huguenot city. If Le Havre changes ownership due to a surprise attack or siege, the counter is removed from the game. What does that mean? Does that increase the total number of cities? I mean, this is what I think it is. I think it increases the total number of cities available in France by 1, as long as Le Havre is there. And once it's taken, it's just an unimportant place again. Weird, but okay. That is the best I can come out of trying to figure this out. I'm still stuck with the... And I could go back and watch my damn video, but I don't like watching them. I don't know why anybody does. I could go back and watch the video on the my first video and see where that assassination occurred. I think it happened in the first turn, you know, but I don't remember. And that card, so my first thought was, oh, you have to play this in the court phase, right? But the assassination happened in the end phase. You know, it should be close to the end of that first video. So I guess I'll go back and do that. But how would I deal with this if I wasn't playing on video? I mean, good Lord. What an obnoxious aspect. Is that the end of the event phase? I go and find my sequence. I really have to follow in the rules themselves because this is the only place where it tells me the things I need to do. Okay, and I should be looking to see if anybody has anything that causes call to arms. I don't think so, but maybe vengeance does? I assume not. None of the cards remaining to be assigned say anything about call to arms, so let me go look at the call to arms rules and see what happens. It's triggered either by the disappearance of Francois d'Alençon during Antwerp Fury. It says it there, good. His natural disappearance in turn 6, I assume he's a turn 5 leader, but I don't know. I can look that up. Francis d'Alençon. He is there. Unfortunately, it doesn't have any note. There should be some kind of note there. Or the royalist Ilnosoir. He would not dare event card. Yeah? Really? All right, I'm gonna look. Okay. Oh, royalist. Interesting. I gotta read. Okay, there it is. And there it does say that it triggers it. Now, I have a turn 5 card there, so I don't have to worry. I gotta reshuffle these guys because they're not going to be reshuffled, and I peeked at them. But, you know, I don't trust that it would do that. That's the problem. When I'm facing a game that's showing so much fuzziness and shakiness as this is, so many things that, like, yeah, how am I supposed to fucking remember who's been assassinated, you know, who that card was used for? The card should say, note who was assassinated, or there should be a space on the thing where you put people who've been assassinated, or something like that. There needs to be something to remind you. The magic of video, I was able to find out it was a royalist, Gaspard de Tauvens, that I killed, which I find kind of weird. I'm curious why I didn't kill Francis de Lorraine. He seems like a pretty good choice to have killed. Maybe... maybe I thought I couldn't kill a faction leader? I'm looking... Oh, fuck. Now, here it says you can take from the deck of leader cards of their choice, theirs or opponents, but the one did say opponent. Any one leader and remove it from the game. Cannot be applied to a woman or a priest. I don't know why I didn't kill Francis. He would have been an excellent choice to kill. I have to look at his shit. If he's a 2 leader, he really would have been a good choice. Better than that, he was a 3B. He was the obvious choice to kill. I don't know. I assume I thought I couldn't kill a faction leader. Or maybe his position, the fact that he was in the cards that I used for that turn, I didn't see him or something. I don't know. But definitely he would have been the optimal choice there, with the thought that, well, the vengeance card may or may not come up. Anyhow, it's not available to the royalists, which was the important thing I needed to find out. Kind of interesting. If Alençon dies due to the Antwerp Fury, the call to arms happens. If he naturally disappears on turn 6, it happens. I guess they mean turn 5, because that's when he would naturally disappear. Nothing about whether he dies anyway. Now, his death is important. Maybe. Its historical importance, let's find him. Let's find the royalists. I get the feeling they're first, but I could be wrong. Ooh, these look like League. No, royalists. He's the last son of Henry II, Henri II. So, the important point with him, he was never crowned. He dies in, back in 584. Okay. But Henri III dies in 1589. So here's the thing. Francis is the last heir. The reason it's important that his death happens is that now the heir to the throne is Henry of Navarre. And that's what switches everything. So in the situation that I'm in, any death of Francis d'Alençon should cause that problem. And here's the other issue. If Henri III dies and Francis d'Alençon, with no heirs of his own, dies, right, it should maybe put it in the same position. This is all very weird. Now the question is, would he convert to Protestant, to the Huguenot faith? See, if I say Huguenot, I want to say faith. In addition to the way that Henri did. And here's another factor. Let's look at some of the other faction leaders. Let me pull them out. Charles IX is pre-programmed to die. And Henri III does not show up before. I shouldn't call him Charles then if I'm going to say things like Huguenot and Henri and Francois Bichard. But Charles to Henry is an automatic path, right? There's nothing. Henry's unimportant before that. Francis is unimportant before that. But now, if we go to this option, to me it's if either of these dies and leaves an heir, and leaves the situation with no heir, there should be a problem. Okay, maybe Francis wouldn't have caused this. But clearly, if Francis dies for any reason, it's going to charge the same problems that we would see. And let's do we have the Fury described? Yeah, we would. Why it's important. Okay, these look like they're in alphabetical order, but I go from E. Oh, this is a chit and not. So maybe chits are not explained here at all and are only explained here. What is this guy doing here? I bet you he's dead. Yeah, he just didn't make it back into debt. Okay, Antwerp Fury is not explained there. It just removes him. So let's find what that's about. Antwerp Fury. Okay. Always in search of a crown, the Duke of Alençon welcomed the proposal of the United Provinces to accept him as protector. He resolved to attack Antwerp. He fails and is killed because of the anger of the defeat. Yeah. Okay. But here's the thing. First of all, if he was King of France, he probably wouldn't get invited into Antwerp. But okay. I mean, there's only so much you can do within this. But also, there is a definite question of what would happen. So there's two issues. One is if Henry III dies and leaves Francis as his sole heir, should that change anything? I'm willing to go with no. That's not going to cause a phase change in and of itself. But then also, if Francis dies in combat, it would put Henry in the same exact fucking position that these other situations do, which is that things are at a head, and Henry of Navarre, who is not allowed to die, the game ensures that his special circumstances, you can't kill him in any way. And is he immune from assassination? I don't remember him being called out in the assassination thing, which may be one of the issues. But he can't die from combat. That's going to change the whole nature of the game is designed and scripted so that you will get to a case where Henry of Navarre is the union of the Protestant and Royalist causes. Even though he converts to Catholicism, it's a more moderate stance than anyone else has taken. Although Henry taking Henry as his heir essentially creates this convergence. The question then becomes, well, at what point do you want Henry of Navarre to actually convert? And I think that's handled perhaps by the occurrence of him switching to Royalist faction, which he's capable of being converted to. There might be something else that converts him. Or maybe that's just the call to arms. But that doesn't make a lot of sense for the simple reason that it wasn't until Henry IV was trying to claim the crown itself that he actually converted. So I don't know if there's some kind of card or event that's going to affect that, which was a pretty significant factor when it comes down to it. Boy, we've sure chatted a lot about the historical side of things, trying to make the game reconcile with them properly, without really getting any plating done. How about that? That's what we're about. Let's go on to one of today's other travails, which was, we already got the sleep one, and I'm kind of giving up. I need to do a video on it'll be a book discussion, though, to tell you the truth. So it has to do with the books I'm reading. But I'm nearly at the point of just saying, fuck it, I'm just going to retire. But getting up at about 5, play my daily video garbage allowance. I sometimes let myself get hooked into these stupid online games that start becoming important what time of day you play. And no, don't ask which one. It's nothing you want. But I turn on my coffee maker and it doesn't work. And I switch which plug it's in. I test out the outlet that I used with my toaster oven. My toaster oven works fine. So I'm like, okay, fuck. Somehow or another, my coffee maker has died. Now, I've never had a coffee maker's coils die. I bought this one used. It was in fairly decent condition, but was probably, 5-10 years old at that point. Because, who gets rid of a coffee maker? I bought it used at a Goodwill. I am probably a student who's moving or something, so it may have been fairly new. But I've had it, for at least 15 years, let me think. Because I bought it here back when I was in school here. So that would put it at... yeah, call it 15 years. It's a good time period. It might be a little bit longer. And it's been fine. And, moderately heavy use, I guess. And it not working, I was just kind of like, oh, wow, they do burn out eventually, I guess. Well... I know stoves and stuff burn out, so what the hell. But I ended up boiling my coffee. I put I have sort of a permanent wire mesh thing as a grounds holder, just because it's cheaper. and more environmentally friendly, I guess. But I put that in, boiled it in there, and I would test it, pour a little bit of coffee into my cup, and it was a little too weak, and I poured a little bit more, it was still a little too weak, and then it was just perfect. And I've gotten all these warnings about don't boil your coffee, it'll be too bitter or whatever. No, it was fine. I'm sure if I boiled it longer, it would get stronger and maybe eventually get bitter. I probably could have boiled it a little bit longer, made it a little bit stronger, but I was afraid of the bitterness factor. It all makes sense. But yeah, I mean, it's really not that different a system. The concept of boiling water with your coffee in it is not that far. It is different from the drip, because the drip only lets the water sit in there for, well, okay, no. It is more, it is sitting in the water for longer. I was going to say, the drip says the water goes through the coffee and is flavored by that. An espresso pot pushes the water up through the coffee, and again, it doesn't spend that long in the grinds themselves. And in this case, it's a matter of maybe the timing is just really hard to get. But by having the grinds in the little basket and a wire connected to the handle so that it wouldn't tip over because it's not flat on the bottom and whatnot. But it worked perfectly fine, and I could do that. It's just harder. And, the beauty of a drip machine is that it's fucking simple as hell. Anyway, what it turned out to be, let me show you. No, I'm not going all the way up to the kitchen. But we just do these things because this is what... It's a requirement to have these, I guess water safe outlets, and something had flipped the switch on my outlet. But the weird thing was, I had certainly thought about that right away, but the weird thing was that the toaster oven worked fine in it. So I don't know what the hell is going on. Like, why the toaster oven could work off of that outlet. I mean, the little light lit up. It wasn't just the timer going tickety tick, which wouldn't have been a reason to concern. Anyway, I throw my hands in the air and say there's magic going on, and that's enough. All right, so it's time to do the character card dealing. And there we go through a little wandering story for no use for anyone. Have fun with it. The Royalists no longer get their magic Catherine de Medici card. Makes it kind of hard. What do I want as my leader? Do I want somebody who's good at doing things? I don't know, maybe. Do I want a writer? My victory points are close to the Protestants on this. I've wiped out the Protestant writers, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to win that way. Or do I want my administrator or a diplomat so I get more troops? Administrator's better than the diplomat. What do I want to do? I don't fucking know. Here's what I do know. The writer is the most likely to give me the victory points. I'm probably not going to be able to win the game by driving the Huguenots down. No matter how good my military situation is, they've just got too many fucking cities at this point in the game. So we're going to try to cast the light of the Royalist faction the best that it can be, which I don't know what that means, in terms of, hey, what am I actually doing? I don't know, wrapping the royal concept in, greater glory or something. Is that important? Maybe. It certainly doesn't seem like something that the leaders would be particularly impassioned about for, hey, how is this going to be looked at in history? Given that the game more or less scripts you so that there will not be well, No, there's no guarantee that Henry III won't live throughout the game and end up having children. So, yeah, that case maybe is the best case. I don't know what that all means, but that's what we're going with. Position is even more difficult. I'm down to second guise. The diplomat, good leader, capable of getting me more troops. Certainly not going to be able to win through troops alone. I'm in third place on the treaty points. Problematic. I do not have a lot of cities. Problematic. What am I gonna fucking do? You know? I mean, I'm looking at third place in cities, third place in treaty points. A writer might get me some advantage. Winning some battles might get me cities, but I'm not going to catch these guys. I think I'm safest with the writer and hoping for the best otherwise. Hoping that the royalists help me out and I help them out. But the problem is that the royalists have a couple of high-ranking leaders, and they might neglect putting league leaders in charge. Here's something weird. This guy has two provinces, it appears, that he's associated with. Provence and 3 évêchés. Well, there's no 3 on évêchés. I don't know. But anyway, this is what the oops. That's a dangerous thing to do. This is what the League is giving them. Cards, to some extent, the Royalists and the League are helping each other card-wise, much as they did right at the beginning, with the idea that the Huguenots are getting too powerful, and that military action kind of benefits both of them. It's a little harder for the Royalists because they know the good leaders are over on the League, but they handed a good diplomat over to the League, for example. The League had a very hard decision as to what they gave to the Huguenots. They gave stuff that will only hurt the Royalists, but yeah, it was a tough call whether to give the Huguenots things that would give them some more cities, they have plenty, or to give them a diplomat that'll give them more money and troops. You can use these other people as diplomats. The nice thing about the diplomat is that they do nothing for them. Now, the Protestants managed to come up with a really great pair of royalists to throw on them that cannot hurt them. They can only hurt, well, I mean, they could. No, they can't. Because he's not the party leader for the royalists. Henri is. And so neither of these can make surprise attacks. They could be used as diplomats, I guess. But they could also be used to take cities from royalists. They do have one danger, though. They can be used to try to persuade Henry of Navarre to switch over to the royalists. And he's a very powerful character to add. And I think there should be a limitation that Henry probably wouldn't join before he's named heir. As long as Alençon's alive, it feels kind of weird to have Navarre switching sides. But as far as I can tell, that's allowable. I'm not. Again, you know, it feels like they put a lot of scripting in and given the amount they put in, they didn't cover some pretty clear things. And I'm really kind of torn on this, how much scripting and what they're trying to do with the scripting. It's like, it doesn't feel like they succeeded in what they're trying to do with the scripting, and it feels heavy-handed all at the same time. The day was almost completely gone when I finished my rants and whatever, and now we're in nighttime, and somehow I slept away almost every daylight hour there was. I had a couple hours total, which is very sad given what time of year this is. Anyway, each of the players played a writer for the Protestants. They played one with no bonuses because they have no writers left, and each one was successful. So one of the weird little issues, first of all, most of these cards you don't want to play. The two were related. You don't want to play until the end of the court phase, because usually things are kind of, hey, you know, you want to keep the surprise value going into the war phase of whatever you're going to do. Okay, whatever. But then I found one that I might want to play, this Disgrace. Remove a royalist leader, which may not be a faction leader. That would have been a powerful card, say, to play against Catherine de' Medici. But just get her out of there so she can't convert things as easily. But one of the problems with it is, this doesn't give you, there's no easy way to see what all the faction leaders are. This is one you'd want to play early on, and you'd want to target somebody in someone's hand. And it seems unfair that as they're playing it, you disgrace them. That doesn't seem right. So it's kind of a, okay, well, I gotta know who their best person is that I can get out of play. By the way, that who's not a faction leader may actually be the why that I thought that the assassination couldn't be there. Looking through all the cards, trying to decide what I was going to play, that one's been kicking around for a while. I may have thought that prohibition was written on the other one, or just considered it there. I don't know. Okay, this turn sequence, I don't know. This guy was up here, and I'm not sure why. Might have just gotten bumped. Opened up with Charlotte de Salvera playing to add Henry de Nevers, using this card to the Royalist faction. Hey, he's out. It's time to hunt him. And now he's part of our faction and we'll never switch. And, if he was in the deck down here, that would suck. This is, or in the hand. This is one of the, hey, maybe not that much. He's not all that useful. He would be useful as a diplomat with a 3 rating, basically, which is pretty helpful. The other two did play diplomats, getting some Spanish troops in play, just 3, and going for the Germans over here with 4 troops in play. The reason being, the Dutch are so far removed from stuff that it's kind of painful to bring them into play. But, they come in with troops and money, and with the roll I got, I would have gotten maximum 3 and 3. That would have been a better result, but there's no guarantees. Got myself into the trouble spot. So, unlikely as it may seem, Francis Alençon was used to try to raise taxes. He failed with a 2. He's dead. He doesn't appear to have a leader counter, as far as I can tell. Be 4 and 5. I don't think there are any there. Okay. Well, that's an issue. And it's the issue that I was talking about. So here's the thing. if we look at the call to arms, if we were to play this as written, he has not disappeared through the Antwerp Fury. He cannot disappear through it. Okay, maybe you can make an argument, hey, if it shows up, it's a problem. And he will not naturally disappear in turn 6 either. Maybe you can argue it'll happen anyway. I still feel like the circumstances that should trigger this are his death. If he is dead, that is where there is a problem. And maybe I'll go to that. Now, what does that actually do? Let's say we have the call to arms in play. The call to arms is triggered either by the disappearance of Francis. Okay, let's say I'm going to do that. In either case, and the problem with him dying this way is that it just happened in the midst of a turn, right? Which is troubling. And the Antwerp Fury should be in here then. Yeah, so it could have happened this turn, but had it happened, it would have happened back in the event phase, allowing everyone a lot more time to prepare for it. And were it to happen at the end of turn 5, beginning of turn 6, it happens at a time when everybody has time to do things. And that may be the reality of this. So what we may assume is that he is dead and the effects would happen next turn. Because taking it here, the league must immediately set aside these cards and draw one into their hand at random. The game ends at the end of the turn at which the call to arms is triggered. So I think next turn it should be triggered, thereby shortening this game a little bit. That saddens me a little because I was planning on ending this video on this turn, at the end of this turn, and then going on and playing out. Now, it would also be possible for it to happen in midterm, but let's get rid of that because I think that's why the mechanism, why the rules are written the way they are. Still not clear, but giving people time to prepare for that final war. So what was I saying? Yeah. So the thing is, I was planning on ending this video at the end of this turn thinking, I'll have 2 more turns to play out. But yeah, I think we should be looking at 1 more turn, in which case I think I'll just cram it all into 1 video. With all the babbling that I put in, it's going to be a longer video than I had hoped. The other people who did things, Alva grabbed Germans, getting some troops for the League, and I used this guy to capture Agen down here, thereby switching the values, and the Protestants are now ahead. But they have to take Paris to win the game, and the game's been shortened. My assumption had been I would have, well, no. The call to arms is what triggers the alliance, so it's really not that big a deal. You get 1 turn in which the Protestants are allied with the Royalists. But the longer this lasts, the better it is for the Protestants, because as long as they're able to win the battle victories, they can take 2 cities from the Royalists. It's not like you can't make some kind of hand-waving argument that Henry's not quite ready to convert over to supporting his apparent heir at this point. That it might require that you get this far for him to make that decision, no matter what. So, you know. Real grabbings at this point. Guyan, we take Agen back. He went for and took Caen, so Protestants lost a couple of points. The Viscount army was used down here. Could have been used here, but this is a major city. More likely to win with one of the others. And I'm going to regularly have the capability to take royalist cities, in my opinion. So major cities seem less important than successes. But I failed anyhow, so guess it didn't make much difference. And I must have forgotten to play a cube. Royalists, I have two options sitting here. Uh-oh, better check to see. It seems to be okay. I think it's all full. I'm going to have to swap very shortly, that's why. I have this guy who can go in Provence. Those are all blue. And Eveshes, which is blue. So he can't do a surprise attack. He can do a surprise attack anywhere. He's my faction leader, I think. It better be. Okay, which means that I can make a surprise attack with no bonus anywhere on the board, or I could make, with either of these characters, an attack, an intrigue type thing. I don't know what it's called. I guess it's gain influence, which would allow me to take just a royalist territory, because again, I'm saying the call to arms hasn't taken place yet. Taking stuff from the royalists is useful, but I'm much more worried about the Protestants winning the game. So I think I am going to go for a surprise attack against a Protestant territory. I wasn't clever enough to figure one out that I wanted to hit. I want to go for a little one because a little one is easier. Let's go back here and try to confuse things. We will hit Nantes, I think. Or do we want to hit one of these? La Rochelle would be interesting. See, I'm looking for ones that are hard to regain more than anything else. Let's go for La Rochelle. And I'm at +0 at doing this. And I fail, but use up my last cube. They're a little harder on the league. I could do a surprise attack anywhere, and that might be worthwhile. But there's also the factor that I could do an interfaction intrigue against the royalists, have more of a chance. And the reason that that's maybe valuable is I'm coming up on, in the next turn, the turn in which I get money based on how many spaces I have. I get troops and money based on how many spaces I have. On the other hand, it's possible, quite possible, that the Protestants are going to get up to 16, which means that they would get 6 money and 6 troops. And I don't want them to have that. So I'm going to go for the surprise attack somewhere against them. We'll go for La Rochelle as well, because we think that's... because +1 seems good. And we succeed. We finish off with the Huguenots playing out 2 diplomacy actions. Now, this one, I could have done a surprise attack somewhere, but it would only get me 1 additional city. And Dandelay was only available for surprise attack in Brittany, which is already all mine. So the only thing I could do with that is intrigue-based operations, and there's not much. There's recruiting and there's diplomacy. I think that's all I really have available. Yes, because I successfully wrote a treaty. Otherwise, I could blow them on that. And so I got myself a Dutch troop, and some money from both rolls. Now we're going to play out our final cards. I roll and make my decisions based on those. But yeah, nobody wanted to play anything early, which is a little weird, but I probably don't want to disgrace someone until next turn. I didn't want to do that. I did not want to do that. So I got, I think, 2 money from this. I always get 2 from that. I didn't want to play this. I want to play, and I'll re-roll. I want to play an attack on La Rochelle. Because I forgot I had this that gets me an additional city. And the way I'm counting that, that will get me more money. So +1 on La Rochelle. We succeed at La Rochelle and take that. Doesn't matter who I take it from, honestly. Except that there are limited numbers of of league cities. Okay, now I play the Hampton Court Treaty. That goes there. I don't know if I need a cube on it or not, but that puts me up to 16, and I get maximum English subsidies, which is 3 troops and 3 money. Army 3 shows up there. So I've got a fair amount of different forces coming in. Next play is really tough. I have no tax revenue. Do I want to play the Estates General or not? I can play it next turn safely. I get the tax revenue. I don't have to worry about it. This turn, though, it means I'd be going without really adding any troops on a turn where the Huguenots have put a lot of forces on the board. Oh boy. And they're opposed to me, right? But by doing this, I give a treaty point to each of my enemies. Now, that ties the league with me, which then I don't know what that does, but maybe we both get the same amount of points probably. I'm not that worried about that, but it puts me further out of reach of the Protestants. On the other hand, the Protestants are likely to win the next 2 rounds if I don't do it. Ugh. I think winning the rounds is a more dangerous thing. I have a great leader in Henry of Navarre. He's switched over somehow to become anti-Huguenot, which really doesn't feel right to me. But yeah, I'm going to play it, and that's going to add some cards to the deck in exchange for a treasury. The other 2 cards that the Royalists have are not available, so let's take a look. Can't play the Vengeance. I could convert a Royalist city. Not of a lot of value to me right now. Next turn it will definitely be useful. And removing a Royalist leader, don't particularly want to do that. It may not be a faction leader. I think that means, I'm sure it means, I can't take out Henry of Navarre. I'm not sure he's immune to everything, though. I know he can't die in combat and whatnot, but I'm not sure every single thing in the game says he can't be impacted by it. And I don't remember any rule that just says he can't be impacted. You know, it's like, yeah. Anyway, so I'm doing the Estates General with the Royalists. I don't think the League is doing anything. Again, this game is really kind of shaky in terms of the development work that's gone in probably hasn't seen the level of playtesting I would expect of a game. For me to see, here's the thing. This is the first time I'm playing it, and I'm finding a lot of places where it's kind of shaky. Well, you know, when I expect games to be playtested, I expect them to have gone out to people who will put it through the rigors and play it, you know, 2 or 3 times, right? I'm just expecting that, right? You know, I should not be able to find things that are this weakly defined, and I should not be able to find as many places where I have questions. I'm not saying 1 or 2 things wouldn't slip through. It feels like there's a whole lot, and there's a reason, you know, behind that, and it's either they didn't send it out to enough playtesters, the playtesters didn't do enough work, or the development team didn't take their playtesters seriously. And those are all possibilities. So, you know, I can't point and say, here's the blame. All I can say is something in that development cycle just was not sufficient. Yeah. All right, that's going to put us to building up the armies. Leaders of money have been placed. Henry of Navarre has the largest royalist army at 6. Little conflict being built up here between a couple of good leaders. Is that legitimate? Yes. Because my B is over here, he's backed up by a starred leader. The only one on the board right now. Little royalist army was built here, just a couple extra strength points because of the 8 strength points. I put the 2 extra here. Well, the Huguenots put a slightly larger force, I think, at 3 strength points, but with some better leadership. To face that, there's a conflict here set up. Army 1 has 4 strength points. League Army 2 only has 3, so that's a significant difference, but there's attritional capabilities. I forgot to draw my cards. Okay, a couple of devastations. What am I sitting on here? An attrition. Similar. And then a forced march for the Huguenots. Huguenots are still on their own, and they still get to move first. Point out, the Huguenot money is getting quite large at $11. Royalists have 5, League has 8. But imagine, you know, next turn when the Huguenot and Royalists are combined. The League is going to be getting, at that point, money and troops by how many cities they have. That's not going to give them much more money, but it is going to give them a greater flow of troops. The Huguenots move their main army here into Champagne, and take Troyes. However, we had a wounding of Henri de Bourbon, which is going to cause problems because he was our B-rated leader. That means we're going to have to put we're going to have to rearrange our leaders at the beginning of our next operation. Let's put these here so I remember where I am. In this. We also had an attack here, which was successful. The attack was successful. The siege of Cognac was successful. And a siege here of Dijon that was successful. That gets us a total of 4 points, running up the score right away, making things kind of ugly. If I screwed up, nah, I didn't want to do that. And I don't think anybody particularly, well, you know, I could do an attrition. I'm going to do an attrition on Army 1 because that's the one that's close to me. Oh, I didn't move this poor sucker. Did I want to? I'll wait. See, but by waiting, see, I can't put him here. That's the thing. I already conducted that siege, which means, you know, I could throw him close, but then he's in danger. So I'll just wait. The attrition for the siege on Army 3, though, I want to play, cutting its size even further down. And I don't think the royalists wanted to do anything there, but they may want to, before their attack, further devastating this army and weakening it. I want to throw back a little bit to the playtesting type thing. There is one thing to my advantage in terms of doing what I do and the errors that I find, etc., that is harder for a playtesting group. So a playtesting group, especially opposed playtesters, are probably sitting together trying to take notes of the things that, you know, really strike them as problematic, whatever. Now, some of the things I found are, some of them are a little less. Like, hey, there's a rule that I didn't really see that, you know, wasn't called out well, or it would be helpful to have these player aids, but it's very easy to let those things kind of pass, maybe not to note them. They're not necessarily problems, whatever. What I give is more like, if you were to see, and Andy Lokes did this when he had us playing Toulon in front of him. It was, read the rules, figure it out. I don't want to tell you what to do and how to do it. And I'll sit there and I'll correct you if there's a problem. But mainly, I'm going to just be taking notes as to where the problems seem to arise, where things might be not complete enough. Now, it didn't really work perfectly, I think, but what you're getting is that kind of playthrough from me, where it's a unsupervised play being demonstrated, you know, and for a couple of games I've done playtests because of this, where it's a painful process, though. You know, I'd much rather hit a finished product and deal with that, obviously, you know. But it does kind of show up where the issues are, etc., in a way that's somewhat different from how a playtester group would approach it. And even a solo playtester, you know, some hitches, you think you're going to make a note about something or something, and then you're like, fuck it, you know. You figure it out in the end. It works its way out. But honestly, a fair number of us, especially with the quantity of games that are out nowadays, play a game maybe once or twice opposed at the most. You know, it's not like it used to be, where you would play something enough that eventually you would iron it out or whatever, with most games. Anyway, going on to the pro-royalist side. Henry of Navarre goes into here, destroys the army that's there using a devastation card. I'm never sure that those are a good idea. You can weaken the strength of an army, but here I was weakening the strength and it didn't really give me anything except the chance to wipe out a force. Wiping out a force doesn't necessarily help. In fact, leaving forces kind of spread out is kind of cool for the enemy. But wiping out the force meant that it wouldn't retreat into here. And this League army was not willing to coordinate to give me even more chances. I also took Troy. Now, moving, one thing that seems weird, wiping out a force feels like it's an important facet. In a game like EU, they cover, hey, if you wipe out the enemy, you get something more than you get normally. At the very least, you get to a better, you know, chance of capturing or killing the enemy forces. Not here. The die rolls for capture and kill are the same no matter what happens. But now he moved into here. The combat, and I haven't rolled the leader casualty check. Oh, we got one on the Protestants. They got an odd, he is dead. So I've got to Get him out of here. Now, killing a leader doesn't give you anything, right? Says the person who... No, it doesn't. So I just have to look that up. But he went in here. They both caused equal losses. They're both equal sized. The royalist player gets to decide who actually won the battle. And in this case, they're going to give that advantage over to the League because we are more worried about the Huguenot getting victory where it comes. Now, this army is smaller. Where might I want to withdraw? Yeah, that's a good fucking question. I don't know. It's really kind of complicated. I can't go just anywhere, but I think I'll fall back to Clermont. That allows me some flexibility which side of the river I want to be on. And now the Imperials are going to get a chance to take their city as well. And we took Nevers, and then a combining of the two Royalist-controlled armies. Now, yeah, so 3 of the armies were controlled by Royalists total. Combining of them ended up getting them to medium size, but they faced attrition, dropped down to 3 strength points again. It was an even battle, but they won it. They destroyed the Huguenot force and ended up taking Cognac. And that means that the Royalists now have as many victory points as the Huguenot. And remember, the Royalists get to decide all ties in the game. So they will win if things stay that way. The Huguenots are decreasing in strength quite rapidly. You can see they're much, much weaker. There's a big army still here. Now, I could split that, which I may want to do, but one of my problems is command and control issues. So let's take a look. Army 1 has to be the biggest command. There is no one bigger, but I do have this guy. I feel like I could throw him into one of the armies without violating anything. Again, there's a fuzziness in the rules as to the deployments when you start a new round, whatever. Slip the UP forces and these others together and destroyed the League forces. Now, the League forces only had 1 strength point, but they had almost an equal chance of winning the battle. Unfortunately, both sides got 1 hit. This is where it gets not really almost, because there were a fair number of dice, 3 dice per side. I probably should have left. And then the Huguenots took this, which brings them up to 6 victory points total for the turn, or 6 war points. Leaving things on the Royalists. Now, here's the problem. The Royalists have 1 buck. They have 2 forces, one of which is rather large. They're not going to be able to move that large force on their own. I don't know that the League particularly wants to help them. You know, and the League has money, but it's like, well, the forces are under Royalist control. My answer is sort of, well, you know, use this guy, and if you end up losing the leader, I'll take command. But otherwise, yeah, our side is done, man. Let the Huguenots do what they can. I'm not going to gain much out of this. I'm not going to gain an extra city, and I've been fucking up. I've been converting things to Royalist again, but it doesn't matter because they've all converted back to League instead of Royalist. That's a really hard thing to remember, that a force commanded by the ally converts to Royalist. The last of the Protestant forces has been destroyed. Well, it took Issoire here. Boosting its points way up. It's really unlikely that the Royalists are going to end up getting enough points here to win it. Do I care if they do or not? Yeah, that's an interesting question. they're behind. I don't know how the league feels about, hey, am I fighting for second place? You know, which it is beginning to seem like they are. In which case, they would want to screw the Royalists as much as possible. But I might be willing to fund an operation against the Huguenots. Largely to prevent the Huguenots from getting more territory, more money, more power. The Royalists are a force that, as big as they get, they can only produce their taxation. The cities they control don't really matter. So I think I will start funding them. Plus, well, Henry can't die. Using League money, I take Navarre. It's getting me closer. And honestly, I don't want to move this army particularly. He's not as good at attacking as Navarre is. Different Navarres. So I'm probably going to wait and try to coordinate them or something along those lines. But yeah, the League is willing to fund the Royalists to see that they can do better and or wipe out the Protestant advantage to some extent. So we'll keep going. I'll come back when I'm done with the whole series. $1 left. Navarre's army is 5 strength points. I can't move the whole thing. That's fine. I probably should have split it smaller and left things behind so I could attack more little cities, but the problem with that is, as soon as I split, the League's going to say, hey, I want leadership, and use money for their own. This is where the League says, you know what, here's the deal. You have 5 strength points. You drop your army to 3. Give me a 2-point army under my command. And I'm willing to go up and attack Le Havre. Am I able to? Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, I'm willing to go and attack something. Yeah, it actually just doesn't matter. Yeah, you go ahead and attack something. We'll attack Nantes with that buck. The reason it doesn't matter is I'm not going to get enough to be able to get a city. The cities convert over to Royalist anyway. The only thing the Royalists get out of winning this is a treatise point. And, you know, it's just so clear that the League is going to be in last place. All I'm doing is sort of playing out the, you know, you could call it kind of a kingmaker type situation, but it's really, and I don't really have to roll for him because he's not coming back. It's really just a, that's, you know, we're going to be in 3rd place for this and in 3rd place here unless something significant were to change. And there's not a lot I can do about that at all. I could have gotten myself maybe 2nd place here by trying to hose the Royalists, but in the long run, I am pretty much guaranteed to lose this game, no matter what. And the real question is between the Protestants and the Royals, which one gains more control over the France of the future? I'm not sure these numbers are right. I'll check them again. I gotta discard dead people and the like. And so this is the losses as we roll into turn 5. Something I didn't notice. There's one that would have come in when St. Bartholomew happened. I didn't see him. And these 2. Because of Francis's death, I get one of these 3. I'll do this the way I normally do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it goes into the player's hand. So we're going to get the Spanish intervention, a big force of League troops. Well, Now, other people don't know which ones I got there. But it's a big deal that it goes into your hand, not into the deck. Any that were in the deck would get pulled out, or in your hand would get pulled out and added to that. So if you had one of those, but they're all turned 6, I think. So, right? Yeah, they're all turned 6, so I don't know how you would get them. You're almost guaranteed to get one of these, and it just goes in your hand as an additional card. The conversion card, this is the Henry of Navarre card, really. Which is, if you haven't managed to get him yet, you get him this way. I kind of wish you couldn't convert him early because it's relatively easy to do. But yeah, this isn't going to show up because we're just going into turn 5 here, and that's it. All right, time to take a break for a while. Hitting a personal note before I take that break. The fact that my sleeping schedule has changed so much is just so fucking weird because I've been having to try to watch what I eat, you know, to a large extent. And when I had a regular pattern, you know, I'd have like 3 meals and a snack every day. I'd get up first thing in the morning, I'd probably have some food, or fairly soon after. Then, because I got up so early, sometime around 10 or 11 in the morning, I'd have a second meal. With my wife around, we used to always start cooking at like 6:45 for whatever reason. That was just the rule. So that she could have, you know, a pattern for her own life, which I wish I could kind of manage on my own. And then, because there was such a long period in between those two, I would have like a snack, which was sometimes fairly large, often a couple of spinach tortillas that I would make, just sort of, you know, a little bit more extra calories to get me through the day. Well, that seemed to be an amount that was like largely holding me even, and I started fighting it, trying to trim it a little bit, whatever. Recently, a poached egg, you know, in the morning was a thing that started cutting me down a little bit. But then that went to 2 poached eggs because I was getting too hungry and whatever. But now that I'm completely random, you know, in terms of my time schedule, I'm finding myself, I got up at 5 or close to 5, ate something. I think I've eaten, yeah, I had like a peanut butter sandwich, which usually is too fattening, too heavy for me. And then I had my ham sandwich, which is quite often my standard. And now I'm hungry again, but I have this knowledge, and okay, so that's 3 meals if I eat something soon, and then I'll try to keep myself to that snack, but it's really getting hard to cut back, and I don't know. It was a lot easier when my schedule stayed even. Now, I used to eat like this when I'd get unhinged from time fairly regularly, but it never was a big deal. You know, I could eat when I was hungry and it wasn't a problem. Now I can't anymore. Now I feel like I'm starving all the time. I don't have a clock down here. So I went upstairs and it was already midnight, which, yeah, I figure, all right. So I had my dinner. Worst comes to worst, I might have another snack. Now it's like 1:20 or whatever, and we're on to the 5th and final turn of the game. I've prepared all the decks, the chit cup, and it's time to draw a chit, I guess. It's a turn 2-1, colonial tourism. I think it's unrest, but no. Tension. -1 to the die for Spanish subsidies this turn. Now, some of these are weird. I think that's this. Some of these chits, the the water grizzin. Well, it says +2 here. Here it doesn't tell me anything of that nature. It's got a bunch of crosses on it. That's all I see. And there's 3 of these. Oh no, these are war weariness. Okay, I'm reading it differently, and that's an event card, I think. So I'm gonna put these 2 over on Spain. Now Spain could be called on by the royalists too, can't they? Yeah, so, but it's just a factor to remember, is that the Spaniards are not in that good a shape right here. Now I figure out where I am again. I think there's room for yet another player aid. There's a fair number that are necessary, but there's something to help you find the sequence of play and maybe some other things. Now we each get our event cards, and I'll draw these. Mercenaries bribe, decrease royal taxes 1 level, 1 army lose half its strength. Well, I guess I need an extra tax level to deal with this. I'll probably get that extra tax level. Now, it's going to confuse the hell out of people when they see that the royalists don't pay it, or it's going to piss me off to no end when I see that the royalists do pay it and build troops with it and then don't get what they want out of it. Mary Stuart's plot. Okay. -2 to English subsidies die roll may be played in reaction to an English subsidies attempt. This I have to be careful with because I think I got Spanish intervention. I did not get the Mary Stuart's gone. And yeah, these are turn 6 cards. You will only ever get 1 of these, which is a little odd. And this appears to be the only Huguenot one. Molly and the Coconut Conspiracy. Yeah. Royals lose 4 troop points to the Huguenot. May not be played after Francis de Alençon's death. This is a useless card, but it's in my hand. And now it's time to build the court decks as usual. Putting those Estates General cards in when I did was not perfectly safe, but was a hell of a lot safer than you'd think. They filled out in the events deck. They don't just go to the player, which means I'm unlikely and did not draw any of them. So I got away free. I didn't end up paying a victory point, which I did not want to do. That connection was not clear in my head. Now, things have changed, right? The league has the extra card now. They'll also get the extra action. These can go away. And we've selected, and now the other players get to pick the choices for people. And I don't know. So some of me, I'm not a big fan of scripting in general, and in multiplayer games, I would rather see a little bit more room for diplomacy, and there doesn't really seem to be a hell of a lot here. And but you can kind of make an argument against it in the sense that it was the character of the characters in the game that kind of determined what the outcome was, rather than some sort of best interests type situation. Card here that seems in error, the Huguenot Assembly. Huguenot. It does not have a province, but it has a combat strength. Now, I don't recall any special rule regarding this. I don't know where I would find such a rule. Combat strength can only be used for surprise attacks. Surprise attack, as far as I know, I looked through the list. Yeah, surprise attack is the only thing that's military for them, and a surprise attack can only be done in a province where you have some value, where you're listed. I don't know if it's supposed to be in any, if it's supposed to be you know, a shot at Paris. If anything, I have no idea whatsoever. One way I can look is I can look in the playbook. It's of course not going to show up in the sequence of play in the thing that tells me, I don't know, compendium of different plays. Estates General, that'll be it. No, that's not it. The Estates General is an event card. Okay, so we will keep looking. Coligny, so we're close. All right. It's under G, and then we go to P's. That's not good. These are not in order. Crap. Okay. Viscount Army, that's not it. Huguenot Assembly. It says non-noble organizations that established themselves mainly in Languedoc during the wars of religion. Seeing through the conflict, the interests of the great lords were often far removed. The Huguenot tiers state organized itself into federations. These small republics in turn negotiated with opposing parties and proved more difficult to circumvent. I'm not sure they should have a military capability. If they did, you would think it would be limited to the Languedoc. I'm just going to play them as though they're a 0-1. Like women who have no capability to do a surprise attack. Well, right. And some diplomats and whatnot. But they all have 0 strength. There's no reason for it to have a 1 strength. I ran out of vid space. My camera has a big card on it, but I can't access that card right now, and I kind of don't want to because the camera acts a lot better working off its internal memory. And I can't record to internal memory when the card is working correctly. If the card's completely out, nothing works. Like, it won't even use the internal memory. It's just fucked up. This thing's never worked the way I would think it would. But since I ran out, I cut where I think was a good place to stop. It probably was between turns. It may not have been. I'll find out after I compile it. But, you know, about half the videos or so went on there. And so I probably ended up doing these 2 turns or something. I don't know. Because what I did today, what should have been today, was not on there. So I should be okay. And we stopped. I was just about ready to say, okay, I'm going to pause in order to do the court phase itself. You know, the prep work for a turn is fairly extensive. But then the actual play of the turn is another step, and then I prep the military, and then the play of the military is another step, you know. So each turn is basically broken into 3 fairly distinct pieces that make for good breaking points. So we had that weirdness with the having to load things up in a different order than I intended. But it's probably for the best. This was getting to be too long a video. I've shifted the order of the player cards because the play order is different now. The play order, I'm not sure in combat. I'll have to look at that. Goes Royal, Huguenot, League, and then we also have now, instead of the Huguenot having more turns, it's the League that has the extra turn. First time through, and I don't know if this is wise or not, but both the Royalists and Huguenot, Royalists grabbed, geez, I don't remember where it was, possibly something in the south. Huguenot grabbed Troyes. They're intriguing against each other, basically, trying to cause trying to get the values here. Now, this is somewhat problematic because this is actually probably a fixed set here. And the Royalists made a mistake by not taking a writer. Well, again, though, I only had one choice, and I took someone no one would give me, who was very effective. But both succeeded. And then the league played a writer who they got a success and pumped another point. So they're within one in the writer value. One thing we're going to see is that the Protestants aren't so sure how much they want to provide an engine for the war effort, because while they have a B leader, the Protestants, the Royalists have 3 leaders. They can prevent the Protestant leaders from actually getting an army unless there's a lot of them on the board. And so it's unlikely that diplomatic functions and whatnot are going to give me that much, but if I can produce a lot of them, maybe I can. Which means the League has an opportunity here to win the war phase, get itself booted up one, possibly gain some territories. They can gain territories through the war phase that'll pump them up, and then they can steal one from the Royalists if they win the war phase entirely. So it's not as hopeless as it might look. The League has some chance still. The Royalists pick up another, in this case, Blois. Doesn't really affect their military situation at all, but it's another territory. That's stretching things. So the Protestants decide to start going for some national troops. They use their diplomat to raise an English army, just a couple of strength points, 2 money, and the League starts generating some German troops. Remember, I've got this penalty for Spain. Reactive cards in this game. I forgot the Mary Stuart plot. This English army was 2 troops, 2 money. I rolled a total of 8 on it, I remember. The -2 would have avoided that. I'm going to avoid that, actually. So that will get rid of this armor. If I had been paying attention, I would have done it earlier. But it's kind of hard to keep track of everything solo, especially in a game that this is this tricky. I'm also trying to figure out what the Royalists, or what the League wants to do. Among other things, I looked at my events, and that's why I saw that. I have the Spanish intervention. That's 8 League troops in Flanders with Farnese in command. Now, Farnese is going to be a high-ranking, very good leader. That's great. It's going to be in Flanders. 8 troops is a lot, but I'm going to go for the for additional Spanish intervention using Alva. Even though this is here, this doesn't prevent anything. So I'm at +2 total on the Spain table. We'll see how well that works. That gets me only to an 8, which will get me 3 troops, 3 money. How much money does this thing give me? No money. So money is going to be kind of important. I got to put the troops down. I know I'm being kind of half-assed. And I will put these... So Army 1 is those Germans. I already pulled them in. I have a fair-sized force there. I think I'm safe putting these here. Keep some force to keep with them. Now, what else happened? Condé went for the United Provinces and got a couple of units there. And Henri continued the destruction of the Protestant cityscape, as it were. Again, now the space is big enough, I feel like maybe I got enough room that they're not going to be able to possibly overtake me, and I can let things go. right now is on building troops. For the French, or for the Royals, another male Anne ends up doing tax collection, getting me a point. I may want to do another tax collection because remember I have that nasty card. But so far I'm not seeing any big armies, and I'm not going to see that big 8-point army until it's too late. The Protestants throw, I think, some Germans into play at this point. And then the League brings Savoy into play with a couple of points of army and some extra money. And, you know, I mean, we're just trying to collect up what we can for these things. You know, we're going to actually probably see some royalist diplomacy, which is complicated because Spain and the papacy are impossible after call to arms. I haven't done either one. But and Spain has a -1 anyway. The Protestant states, what are those? Well, it doesn't matter here. I can't find any rules that apply to them, but my guess is that they're Protestant German states and they will show up along with the German troops. Last couple, Henry of Navarre, what does he play? Well, again, I don't see any big troops. So I played to do a diplomacy on the Protestant states. I didn't put the counter there, but I gained some additional forces, which brings that army up to an 8. It's probably an army I want to split because a large army is painful and ineffectual. I mean, it's very potent, but it's slow and expensive and takes attrition. Protestants played also on the Protestant states, did they? No. They gained themselves something in Guyane. I don't know, maybe not in Guyane. No, they gained Nantes. Got that back. The reason being they wanted to get their money and power up by 1. Now, this leaves me in a weird position for the League. First of all, I played Louis de Montpensier. He was in Berry. He got me Sancerre. Gets me another buck and another troop. That seemed better than going for just money from the papacy. I think I'm going to have enough money. Troops are going to be the problem. Now I got Guy, and I could go for the papacy with him. I don't think that's a good idea. And what that means is intrigue doesn't work anymore. Nobody wrote a treaty other than here. The Protestants probably should have, but they got distracted. They would have been rolling at no bonus, but again, they got distracted into the military mindset. Henry, I can do a surprise attack anywhere, and that's probably the best thing I want to do. So let's figure out somewhere that is good to do one. Nantes does not seem like a terrible idea. Is there somewhere better? Saumur, maybe? Here's the thing. If I get the advantage of cities over the Protestants, though, that's probably for the best on me. So I think taking a Protestant city would actually be more useful. All right, well, Nantes is going to be hard for me to get. Otherwise, I'm not really counting on the river bonus for any value, but let's just go for it. And I get that. A bunch of events they wanted to play. They played Triumvirs, got themselves Rodez here. I don't know why I took that. I thought I was going to have forces coming in from Spain, but no, they're from the United Provinces, which is listed as Flanders, but it doesn't say that anywhere here. So again, some of those weirdnesses, but I get Farnese with that. It was a decent leader. I did the Triumvirs, and I did disgrace, remove a royalist leader, which may not be a faction leader. Now, I don't think that means it may not be the current faction leader. I think it means it may not be anyone who's listed as a faction leader, because Henri de Navarre is not the current faction leader, but he could be a faction leader. So I think it has to be that way. And so these play out. That leaves the royalists still with the possibility of cutting the army in half in exchange for getting rid of their tax value. I didn't build for the second tax because I didn't see many troops. And in fact, with the Spain reduction and everything, it seemed a little iffy. But now, I don't like what I'm seeing. Here's the thing. The Protestants are going to generate me a fair number of troops. I think it's worth me taking the tax value and having Farnese's army by playing that. All the other cards that are in play are not allowed to have any effect. So I'm going to get rid of them as well. So we have the Vengeance, which the assassination card was played against someone else. We have this, which we're always losing people. I don't know. I guess he exists. I keep bumping things off the table. We have, for the Protestants, we have this conspiracy, which can't be played after Alençon's death, and comes really close to when he can. We have the Grand Tour of France, which can't be played after St. Bartholomew, and we have the St. Bartholomew Massacre, which is just a way of forcing it to happen. Okay, so we will be going into the war phase. I'll draw my war deck cards. More troops, attrition, and a logistics. Nobody got the engineering card. That was the new card added. The additional troops, the Protestants got 4, which they put here in Bordeaux, and 4 extra bucks, which gives them a workable money amount. The Royalists get to pick where the leaders go to some extent. They get an A and a B, and then there's one more B left. And that's the 3 armies that are out there. So I've got to give 1 army to the Huguenot. For the League, I got a bit of a problem. I'm going to, first of all, I get 9 bucks, 9 armies. 9 bucks throws me above the track. I threw a couple of cubes on there to indicate the extra money. I'm assuming you can go over. You can't with armies. They are limited to 9. So I could put 9 in one place. But remember, I don't really like large armies. But let's say I break it into 2 armies, a 4 and a 5. Right now I've got, oh, I only have 1 more army. Shit. Wow. Well, that's going to cause issues. Okay. So yes, indeed, I have a 9-force army that I have to place. And, you know, I'm not sure if you could fiddle with these 2 sets and have extra armies. Like, if all the Protestant armies were filled and they had their troop commitment, that they could place additional armies out of the Royalist list. I don't know if that's allowed or not. There should be some juggling between them, but I've got to place this somewhere. And what's worse is Farnese was claimed he gets placed up there, but on the first round that the Royalists go, it's going to get moved to this 9-point army. So I'm just going to, since the Royalists go, when the first round, when the League goes, since the League has to go first. Now, I believe the order does change. Yeah. Yeah, the League plays first. Since the League goes first, or their side, that means this is going to have a new leader assigned to it immediately. And I can't do anything. It's not allowed to be anywhere other than one of these spaces. So let me look for what's a weak army. Army 3 is my weakest. That's over here at Savoy. Got a lot of strength down here. But if I put... That army could actually move... Well, that doesn't really help. Now, I'm looking at trying to balance things out. Because I could split the army, put a leader, and then combine. So... This gives me the most flexibility. Army 2 is not very big either. So, yeah. And now we place the leaders. And the effect is the same as having Farnese up here. I had to put my other 2-point leader up there. I don't have to. Oh, but I want to because there's a Protestant army up there. Yeah. Okay. So this is the situation we have. It's kind of a mess for this last round. And I feel too tired to deal with it right now. It's probably around 4 a.m. at this point, which, you know, you would say, well, you've been up 12 hours, whatever. Yeah, I know, but something makes me just want to curl up and read when it gets to this hour. I know I'm getting close to bedtime or whatever, and I don't know. Maybe I'll sleep a little bit more than I have recently, or a little bit less than I have. Get to sleep a little earlier. I don't know. Seems that even morning can't bring me sleep. So we'll move on. I took a couple hours listening to stuff, hoping it would make me pass it. Reading, then listening, 3 hours maybe. And now here it is, about 8 o'clock. Okay, so first, the League doesn't have room for another army. I can maybe make room. Doing so might be good, might be bad, but I don't really want to move my big army under Farnese anywhere because I have to pay a lot. It's going to take an automatic attrition as a big army. You don't want these kind of gatherings. I'm not facing a hell of a lot except for this army, which I want to get away from, there's no question. But I think I'm going to pass on the A army and, you know, start working to try to set things up so that I can use my armies more efficiently. Even though I have piles of money, wasting a big 3 cost and an extra troop, it just doesn't seem wise. Consolidation, an attack here took Troy, one took a Soir, played a logistics card. Let me make sure nobody has a siege card they wanted to play. I got an attrition. Yeah, I could hit either of those. So this is the only army. That's army number 2 that is under Hugo control. And I may not be allowed to keep control of that if I consolidate with any other armies. I'm going to hold on the attrition, let the League run its course a little bit. But you can see those captures have brought the League up in parity in total cities with the Huguenot, and have given me a couple of victory points. The Huguenot refused to move, made an attack here, took Troy, but the Royalist force did not. They evaded. They didn't actually retreat. I'm not sure why. It might have been valuable for me to do so, but I did not. The Huguenot, like I said, chose not to spend any of their money to move, and then the other Royalist force went into Pau and did not succeed. That's going to put it back on the League. I've got some flexibility because I've got an extra couple armies available if I so desire. The wisdom of my attacks, I left this guy at Lyon still. He's a big force, big enough that Army 1 probably doesn't want to mess with it. Army 4 came out here, successfully attacked this. Laid siege to Le Havre, succeeded at that. Getting another point for that. Managed to kill de Gaetan. Would be better if I captured him. That would be more points. Basically, I'm counting on being able to bring these to an even level. It's not going to go higher than that. But I might be able to take royalist cities to the point where there's enough of an advantage, particularly because the royalists don't have any money. The Huguenots do, but do they really want to fund, this situation? I also went down here and attacked this royalist army. It escaped, and there was nothing for me to siege, which was probably very foolish. I find it very easy to make little mistakes like that. I have to reorganize the royalist armies. We're fine here. That's the biggest army. The next biggest is Army 3. That's under a B. That's okay. Maybe I don't have to. Army number 2 over there is a 2. Yeah, we're fine. Okay. Never mind. They're trying to come up with some kind of deal with the Huguenots. Basically, send Army 1 here with its 2 strength points to combine with this. That would give the command over to whoever's up there commanding their forces. Henri de Bourbon, who's a pretty decent leader with his supporting, and that would, and the Huguenots would give enough money for this to march in there and attack Normandy. And I think they're going to do this. The siege of Caen was successful. Over here, we successfully attacked Army 4, got our point for it, and killed Henry de Guy. Protestants are not paying for that army to move. There may be realignments again happening, but put this back on the league. The league, Army 2 has gotten bigger than Army 4, so I gotta swap these leaders. And then I think it's time for the big army not to move as a whole, but to split up. Well, Paris is a hard reach. That's the problem. Because if I split this and send him forward, that's got to be a 5-point army he takes with him. Because he's got to take the majority of it. And that would mean I can't reach without a forced march, which maybe I have. I do not. I have a devastation. Wouldn't want to play that in Paris, though. Understanding, if I want to move this, I split it out. But I've already assigned my leaders, which means I pull a lesser leader for this 4-point army. He is outranked by this guy, but that's okay. That's how it has to happen. More victory points, gathering the other army up here in Champagne. It's actually larger now, under a B, than Farnese's army, which grabbed Blois. And then a move up here, he managed to withdraw, and we did not take the city. That puts it back on the Royalist Huguenot. Got 3 different pronunciations. This is getting harder. Okay, first of all, let's look at the leadership. The leadership is set and allowable, as long as there's nothing better than a B out there, or, yeah, which there wouldn't be. However, if I can pay this, I can launch an attack on that, and right now, the situation is such that the Royalists would win, I think. But the Huguenot could conceivably take Paris, which is worth like 4 points or something. It's not very likely. In fact, I don't think I'll have that many points. I'll have 2, 2 and 3. I'll be 2 more. I could conceivably do that. So I'm like, hey, you want me to wipe those out? I can pay the attack. Oh no, I can't take Paris. But I could take Blois, and that would switch things, and I'd be in second, at least temporarily, for that. So let me move armies 2 and 3 for $2, and that gives me a shot at beating this army. If I don't beat that, well, no matter what, the League is not going to beat the Royalists, right? The League is going to get tied up with them. Everybody's going to have the same number of treaty points. There's just no way to bring that Royalist number down. And one Royalist city will convert to League as well. So yeah, the League, the Royalists basically say screw you to the Huguenots. There's no reason for me to do anything. Commands here. I think I want to try. Let's see. What would I need? I get one here. I get this. 2 would get me to a tie, and that I think is the best I can do. So I need to take 2 cities. Okay. I can launch an attack up here. That's easy. If this guy launches, well, Army 1, Army 2, these are both bigger. Now I could break off another army from here and go for a tied battle trying to take Chartres. That would give me a couple of shots at points. But this is a crapshoot. So I think I'm going to move these 2 armies and just try to take cities with them. Successes we desired. Taking Nevers and La Rochelle here. That again leaves it on Huguenot Army 2 to try to change things. What can they do? I have $3. I can play. Nobody else can move. Currently, this is going to be a tied game between the Royalists and the League. But what can I do with this army that's of use? So I'm not going to be able to take this away, that's for sure. I only have $2 basically, and it's a small army. Basically I can take 2 territories at best. Who do I want to aim for? Well, I don't have much choice. I'm going to aim for the League, but unfortunately I don't gain things, they do. Taken 3 things because I had $3, but instead I only took 1 up here at Blois. Blah. It's enough though to put the Royalists in sole lead. We'll take a quick look at how that works. We're at the war end phase. The Royalists got the most points, so they picked to there. They get to take any city of their choice. The League. Any city of their choice from the Royalists, which will take, say, Marseille. But it's still just 1 city, because number of cities is the important thing, not the size of the city. Size of the cities is important for a lot of stuff, but not for ultimate victory. We're at the end, and we score. And who's got the most cities? The Royalists do, the actual Royalists, with 7. Then the League at 5. And then finally the Huguenot at 3. Why they didn't just subtract 3 from all of these, and likewise subtract 1 from all of these, I don't know. In terms of political conviction, they all have the same value. If it's a 3-way tie for first, it's 4. If it's a 3-way tie for third, it's 1. Doesn't really matter. The Royalists get the win. The Huguenots lose, which probably means the Edict of Nantes doesn't even really happen. That's kind of how I'm judging this. It's nothing in the game, but I would say, you know, if it were the other way around, the edict would happen. If somehow the Huguenots get the top score, well, the edict doesn't get revoked anywhere near as soon as it does. But that's the game. I definitely made a bunch of mistakes. Some in the tactics, etc. Sometimes in terms of there's such a heavy burden in the military, in terms of the mental mechanical stuff. Well, more the purely mechanical stuff that you have to track, that, you know, and things that just are not easily handled. That's often the case when you're facing a new system, but this goes beyond that. The game itself seems to lack the kinds of tools that would make it easier to play. And I'll go into more about that in my review when I get to it. But that's it. I don't have a hell of a lot to say about strategy, I think, except that, like, you've got this weird balance between, you know, early on trying to go for the automatic victory makes sense. And the League was the only one who I think really felt like they had a shot at it. The Royalist one, well, the Royalists did as well. The Huguenots have a much, much harder time getting the automatic victory. Taking Paris is not easy. That's all there is to say about it. Taking large cities isn't easy. But Paris is, I think, a 4-point city. Of course, it's worth a lot on the war track, but it's really hard to get, you know, you have to get a big army in there. In order to fight Paris at even, you need a 1-point leader with a large army. Could I have maybe fought it? Sure. But then you have to also drop a 4-point garrison in there, which means if you're attacking with less than like 6 armies, just don't bother. You know, Paris might get 2 hits on you, which means 6 is sort of the minimum that you want to put up against it. It might get more than 2 hits on a really lucky roll, so maybe you don't even want to attack it without a large army. But yeah, it just feels like you're running around trying to pick off points, get this, so that you get your treaty points. I made some definite errors in terms of certainly the Protestants should have played one of their leaders for a treatise point. That wouldn't have made up for this situation. But if they had had an extra point, we would have been looking at 4 points for them, and then I'd say the other 2 would be tied for last, which would give them either 1 or 2 points. Are they tied for second or are they tied for third? I would generally say they're tied for second, but it's not covered in the rules, of course. So that would be a 2-point bonus on them. But they're 4 points behind the lead and 2 points behind behind the second place. So they'd end up tied for second instead of being in dead last if they had gotten a treaty off. And the situation was about as it is. How much worse could it be for the Huguenots? Well, I mean, they ended up dead last here. They didn't get this. Yeah, that's as bad as it gets. So certainly the treatise writer would have been a good move there. And because they've lost all their writers, they don't have to have a writer in their hand in order to try. Of course, it's better than 50-50. They only need a 7 or higher. That's the thing. Almost every action you take has a good chance of being successful. You know. Anyway, that's the game. I'll be back with reviews.